Hello there, good morning. Somehow I'm wondering why the phone. Oh, I think it's because I have the light down. Let me see if I can get this better. Maybe you have good light, but I don't. Yeah, I had the light turned off. But the screen isn't responding. Oh, there we go. I wasn't getting a good response from the screen. Isn't that marvelous light? And it's only going to get better as the sun rises. Some people are very happy over here, dedicated to taking pictures. I should have got those birds flying by. And that light's coming from 91, 92, 93 million miles away. And it's coming for us. God has made a place for us in which to dwell. Our world, our planet. So much detail in this world. Every atom, every plant, every living being. People in awe. We are in awe. Sharing thoughts. Family, friends, spouses, neighbors, parents, children, all of humanity looking out on the world in awe. A place God made for us in which to dwell. You remember David? And he said, I'm living in a house of cedar. I need to make a house for the Lord. He's just in a tent. And God sent Nathan to tell him, you're going to make a house for me. I'm the one that's going to make a house for you. And that's a little bit the theme of today with different readings. That's not a reading chosen for today. We have special readings today out of the normal cycle because we're remembering a very important place of prayer. And so the theme of the temple of God. You are the temple of God. So even though a place might be very important, like even the temple in Jerusalem, you are the temple of God. I'm going to try a new little thing here with the camera here. Maybe a different spot over here. How does that look? Here comes the sun. plant is growing quickly here. We had the vision of Ezekiel today to ponder this theme of temple. Why the temple is so important. And this vision is so eloquent. We have the water coming out from under the altar and going down the Kidron Valley all the way to the Dead Sea. I love this vision. I often talk about it because let's go back there. Let's go back to Ducanaltum. It's very, very special reading, very evocative, very filled with marvelous imagination, and so prophetic. It's talking about how the water's coming out from the temple, going down the Kidron Valley in an increasing flood, and this flood is turning the Dead Sea into a fertile sea. The Dead Sea has been dead for a long time, and before that it must have been sick for a long time. And it's actually right now in a state of crisis in its present condition, in its present status quo, because it's actually continuing to evaporate more and more. And there's great concern ecologically about its sustainability. But that's not our subject right now. In a way it is, because it's the reading. So Ezekiel sees the water coming out from the temple of God, from under the altar, from the presence of God himself, and is turning the Dead Sea into a haven for fishermen. Wow. And there are more fishermen. There are lots and lots of fishermen from Ein Gedi to Ein Gelim, and there are more fish in the Dead Sea than in the Mediterranean. Can you imagine that imagery? That God is a source of life. We worship God in his temple, and the streams of water come out, and that water is also enabling the growth of fruit trees along the banks of the Kidron River, which is still desert to this very day, okay? And the fruit trees are giving fruit every month, and the leaves are good to heal every kind of illness, even corona and cancer and all kinds of illnesses. So we see here all the water surrounding the temple of God, so to say, this imagery. The temple of God sitting on the waters. Even in Genesis, God is hovering over the waters. So we often talk about this reading when we're explaining inside here in Ducanaltum. There you have the boat altar. It's hard to make it out there with the reflection now. The reflection is dominant. There you can see a sketch of the boat there. And so this imagery of Ezekiel then speaks of the fountain of life that the relationship with God entails. waters of the river give joy to the city of God, give joy to his people. But that imagery continues to grow in the understanding of who we are, that the way it's said is, we are God's temple. God wants to live in us. So there's a great symbiosis of this image, seeing God who builds a house for himself, and we are that house. The dignity of the human being as the dwelling of God. And that imagery and that understanding is very developed in Christian thought. In a question that Jude the Apostle, I'm not sure if it's been posted yet on Magdala's Facebook and Magdala's YouTube. Jude the Apostle is the latest number, the latest one we'd covered here in the series of the Apostles. And he asked a question to Jesus at the Last Supper, and Jesus' answer talks about how the Father and the Word incarnate would come to dwell in each of them. We do need, as human beings, places to gather, places to pray, places to meet. And when they're associated with God, they have usually received incredible endowment from generous people. Sometimes people are critical of that, but people are putting their action into where their treasure is. And their treasure is that relationship with God, and they want to express that in the most beautiful way possible. Like, why do people buy a very expensive ring for marriage? As these are expressions of love, of appreciation. Of course, there has to be great consideration then of how much is put into a building and how much is provided for the people who have real physical existential needs. Even as far back as St. John Chrysostom, we have very clear preaching from him about this, asking the people how can they buy more gold vessels when there are some very poor people in the area that they should take care of. And yet people are wonderfully, people who are dedicated to God are wonderfully capable of doing marvelous works for his honor and glory, to highlight the presence of God in the community. We can think of those Gothic churches and as a great example, and many others. But then if that helps us to appreciate that we are God's temple, and there's so much language of that in our Christian culture, it's amazing. The story of the Good Samaritan looking after the beat-up person, and Jesus saying, whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. He's identified with us. So this whole celebration of temple of God, of house of God, then is just one more expression of our union with God. Receiving those fountains of water, receiving that water coming from that fountain that gives us life. God has made a home for us to dwell in. And above all, He wants us to be His home in which He can dwell. And when you go to somebody's home, the most mature, normal, civilized thing is to have great respect for a person's home. So each time we see a person, even a person that we might be very angry with, a person who's very sick, a person who's very repugnant in their manners and their attitudes and their ways, completely foreign to my way of seeing things and doing things, the respect we need for each other. Yesterday evening, I had the joy of being at an event in Ben Gurion University in the Negev, near Beersheba, where Abraham also had lived for some time. And it was honoring some people that are actually very good friends. An Israeli Jewish woman, a French monk, Father Benoit from Abu Ghosh, from the Benedictine monastery there, the site of the Emmaus, a Russian priest who works in the Negev with a lot of other people, a rabbi there, a sheikh, Muslim sheikh, imam, and many, many people. And all of these people had in common that they are working with people of other faiths, trying to overcome all sentiments of negativity to build community. Because God wants to live in the whole human family. And we need a lot of patience with each other at times. People need a lot of patience with me. And so this was a very inspiring event last evening. And I wish you that wherever you are, you will see in every human being that temple of God. So for now, we'll say goodbye. I was ready for rain this morning. It rained a lot last night, so it didn't happen. So God bless you. See you later, alligators.